Fuck it. Hello everyone, welcome to Anime Club After Dark, the podcast that delves into all things anime, manga, and otaku culture related. I'm Nitai, and welcome to a very, very special program that we have for you guys tonight. Probably the first big debate extravaganza we had over on the Anime Club After Dark podcast, but today is a very special day because we have this big ass debate between two of our members. Now, to my left, not physically, figuratively, our first contender in the debate, Alex Senpai. Say hi.
Woohoo!
Excitement, yay. To my figurative right, he is... Oh god, okay, let's get going with this. Show!
Hi.
Okay, we got this really fun debate we wanted to do for a while now, specifically between Alex and Show, when we talk about gender roles and feminism in anime. We'll start by presenting both of you guys like things you stand for in this debate, and then we'll get going with a few questions that I'll lay down, and both of you guys will discuss and debate, and it'll be a lot of fun because I'll be sitting here and just eating popcorn. So, Alex, what is your opinion you want to voice tonight?
All right, well, first off, I want to say thank you for waking up at 2 a.m. to do this debate, Natai.
Oh, God.
I know, it's fucking time differences, right? So, as Natai mentioned, this debate is going to be about gender roles, the portrayal of gender roles and feminism in anime. I am very, I won't say very, I am going to take up the pro-traditional gender role portrayal and the anti-feminism side of this debate. There was one thing, though, I really want to be very, very clear about. When I'm talking about feminism in the context that we're talking about it, I'm going to be mostly referring to the concept of third wave feminism, which started in the early 1990s, and it covers topics of like postmodernism and oh god, that was a sneeze. I'm sorry.
Bless you.
Intersectionality and womanism and sex positivity and things of that nature. So that's actually the role I'm going to be taking. I also want to say that a lot of this comes out of the debate that we had during our recording of a podcast that we never actually did, which was the Darling and the Frank spoiler cast. So
rest in peace. I
know, rest in peace that podcast, which you will never ever hear. That 2.5 hour ordeal. So I hope that this debate that we're going to do has the same kind of spirit of that debate, because I think a lot of us actually enjoyed that conversation that we had during that podcast. Anyway, that's my opening statement.
AKA #feminism. Okay. And next up, Show, present us with your opinion or stand you take for this debate. Go.
Well, in contrast to Alex, I'll be taking up the anti-traditional gender roles, and I will be pro-feminism. I am not too familiar with feminist theory, so I'm not too clear on the multiple waves and their differences. But when I say I am pro-feminism, I generally mean I believe in equal treatment of men and women. So that's what I will be arguing.
Okay.
That's second wave feminism.
Hey. Yeah, this is why...
Unsolicited comments.
Now I speak. You two stay quiet. And yeah, this is why I'm here. I will be the moderator tonight, and I'll try and keep these two civil as much as possible. Kind of a impossible task, but sure. Yeah, and hopefully this will be like a fun discussion that'll maybe help us kind of either reach more of an understanding of each other or just lead to more fucking around. I don't mind. I'll have fun either way. And
you're just eating popcorn.
Yeah. I'll enjoy myself. So, are both of you ready?
I am.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good to me. So, let us begin the debate. Woo! Alright. First question on the chopping block. This is actually a fun one I really want to hear you guys talk about. Is gender bending feminist? but to be clear, the act of turning male characters to female characters, or vice versa. So, is that feminist? Go, Alex.
Am I going first?
Yeah.
Okay. I figured since I had the first opening statement, I would go first.
Wait. Before you begin, how we? Sorry, I didn't mention before. How we're going to structure it is each one of you is going to get their time to voice their opinion, and once you both voice your opinion on the matter, if you have any holes you want to poke in the other's statement, then you go for it. But first, you let the others speak. Okay?
Sexual innuendo number 1. Poking holes.
Poking holes. Or we are keeping tabs of how many sexual innuendos are in this debate. Okay, so God. It is an interesting question, but I think I can answer this maybe with another question, is why is it only male to female that has to be considered a feminist position? Why can't it be the other way around? I mean, it's a good question to ask, because why does it only have to, why does it, to be feminist, why does it only have to be one way? Well, I'm of the opinion that given what feminism, specifically second wave feminism, stands for, that male and female human beings, or even anime characters in this particular regard, can be treated as pure equals, then I think, yeah, male to female can certainly be considered feminist. I don't know, trying to think of the best way to put this. I'm not sure if it necessarily is always going to be a feminist idea, depending on how it's portrayed or how it's actually done in the medium, whether it's anime or manga. But I suppose it could be. I think it's kind of the sillier, the better question to ask is, why does it have to be male to female to be feminist, though?
May I answer?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait. No. Oh, I'm enjoying this. No.
He has power.
I want to hear your answer to the question first, and then you can keep going, okay?
Okay, so...
Is that fine with you guys, this type of structure, by the way?
Yeah,
sure.
We should have rehearsed this beforehand.
Yeah, we should have talked about it before recording, but fuck it.
I view male to female gender bending as not feminist, because, transforming a male character to a female character takes the concept of males are equal to females a little too literally, and it just makes it feel like the woman is just she's just a shadow of a male character. This kind of makes me think, it's not anime, but kind of makes me think of the Mario universe, how a lot of...
Oh, God. I know exactly what you're thinking about, too.
The quote-unquote male characters have female counterparts. And...
Hashtag Bowsette, best girl.
Maybe that. Relevant, maybe, no. But, it kind of takes away from the individuality of the women. It's oh, they can't have their own character, that you have to just piggyback onto an existing male character's already established backstory and everything. So I think it's mostly demeaning. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do a little back and forth. Alex, what do you have to say about that?
I can certainly see where he's coming from. And I think I understand what you mean by demeaning. It's it's almost portrayed as if the women couldn't exist without the male side of them. Is that basically it?
I can't respond.
I mean, if I ask a question,
a yes or no would suffice.
What's the question?
Wow. So, are you basically saying that it's demeaning because it's basically showing that the female side of them can't exist without a male side? It's
just they have no individuality. It's they put no creative thought into the female character. It's basically just a male character with a wig on. Is it really a female character? I don't know.
I mean, in that sense, you could almost say it's like cross-dressing.
They're still male though.
Yes, they are. I mean, to use an example maybe from a show that came out this year, I've forgotten the name of it. God damn it. Oh, Mahou Shoujo Ore. which was a show where it had females transitioning into males. That's part of the reason why I bring this up. Like, how can one be feminist and one not? Or is that feminist? Is that more feminist than male to female?
Am I allowed to answer?
Yes, you can talk freely, but keep it civil. Otherwise, I'll shout.
Keep it civil.
So I originally posted this question as specifically male to female because that is the most common gender bending I see. In the case of Mahou Shoujo Ore, I wouldn't really call that gender bending because they're not like there's no initial character that's being gender bent. It's like they introduced their own original character and then they exist as both genders at different times. It's like yeah.
So you're saying that since it's not permanent, it's not necessarily like it doesn't really count.
Well, it's more like how usually, like, for example, Fate, when they gender bend, they're taking the history, the entire character of one male person, and they're making a new character that is now female. Whereas in Mahou Shoujo Ore, there was no existing thing to change.
Well, you could definitely say that about a character, and specifically in Fate, like Saber, who is supposed to represent King Arthur, who was most assuredly a man.
Yeah.
And Saber, who was most assuredly a woman.
No confirmation.
Well, yeah, no, it may be a trap. I don't know. I'm not an expert in the Fate series, so I don't know for sure. There may be a story in which Saber's a trap. But
please no. Sorry, keep going.
You are right that there's more examples of male to female gender bending than there is the other way around. And maybe that's why the question is actually a good question. It's definitely overrepresented male to female. So maybe that's, if it isn't feminist, then maybe there's something to be said for that. I don't know.
Well, in the case of Fate, I feel like I can't really blame Fate for that because, you know, a lot of major historical figures are male, and that's not really Fate's fault. So I guess the only way for them to have an equal cast of men and women is that some of them have to be changed to women.
But do you think that was done for equality's sake, or do you think that was done for aesthetics' sake?
Or even marketing's sake.
Or marketing. Yeah, well, aesthetics, marketing. I mean, you can market aesthetics.
Well, I mean, like, not like there are male characters in Fate that are very popular as well as the female characters. So I think that they want to market both genders. So, like, a male character can be as marketable as a female character. And so I don't, because, like, it's not like there's some other shows there where they anthropomorphize it's just all women. And I guess that's for marketing.
Well, I guess a good example of that might be Mahou Shoujo Madoka Magica, where literally the entire cast is female.
Oh, I'm thinking of, I don't know what about, like, wasn't there like a horse girl anime?
Oh,
horse race girls? Yeah, they were all women, right?
Yeah, all the yeah, and that bothered me so much.
Yeah, because they can't reproduce.
You can't reproduce.
So yeah, exactly, like that. Like, I would say that's probably for marketing because they're targeting a specific audience, I guess.
Yeah, but even with Fate, like the source material for Fate is an eroge, and eroges are almost exclusively marketed toward men.
But no, like, not all men have the same interests. I feel like Fate is.
I mean, this whole discussion of marketing is like good enough, but let's not like steer it too much far away from the original question, okay?
Okay. I mean, I would definitely take your premise though that you can market male to female gender bending way more than you can female to male. I personally think so.
Well, it's more often done. The market for female to male hasn't been tested. It's untested.
It certainly hasn't been tested as much. That's for sure. It'd be interesting to see, like, if there was ever an equilibrium that was like they arrived at equilibrium between the two types of gender bending. Which one would sell better? I suspect it would be male to female, Mostly because I think men would enjoy that more.
I mean, anime and manga has a strong female following as well, who would be the main market for the female to male. So it could sell.
True. I mean, this could actually be something good that that studios could look into. It's like, why not? Why not try and see if there's actually a market for this?
So let's get back to the question. That female to male, as infrequent as it is that feminist? I know it's hard to say because you don't see it a lot.
It is. It's very. I would have to say that, given the fact that I think that male to female gender bending can be feminist, I would have to say that I would have to think the same thing about the opposite way around, female to male.
Wait, why do you say male to female can be feminist?
Because if you think about what feminism is allegedly supposed to be about, it's about equality between the sexes, right? Well, what's more equal than saying one can be another and the other can be something else?
Because one was the original and one is a copy.
I don't really think about it like that. I think, like, if you're changing genders, you're probably going to be a somewhat different person.
I mean, like, in most of the times when you're changing the genders, the original has more depth and stuff to it than the copy. The copy is just like, whatever. It's just like a gimmick.
I mean, maybe if you're talking strictly in terms of story, then yeah, I would actually go along with you on that. But if you're talking in terms of pure aesthetics, then I would have to say that maybe not.
Well, I think female to male is also not feminist. Nothing is feminist unless I say so. No, it's not feminist because it's like. I was gonna say that it's like demeaning the original, but then you could just reverse that logic and say that, you know what, gender bending in general is just not good. It demeans the original and it demeans the copy. Both are demeaned. It's just not good. It's good as a gimmick, like for comedy or like for just frivolous sex appeal, whatever. That's fine, but I don't think it's like. It doesn't really do any service to any of the characters, either way.
I would say also it's good fodder for fan artists.
Yeah, we haven't talked about that a lot, and that's like a big part of the gender bending is the fan art gender bending.
Yeah,
and I'm fine with fan art gender bending.
It's also a very good gauge to see, like very good way to gauge to see how many people are very actually interested in characters through fan art.
Yeah,
I think. Well. I think we covered that pretty extensively. 1 point for show.
Yes!
I didn't know there was actually a competition.
Well, I did. As of this moment, there is. So I've got to write that down. Hey, I need to enjoy this as well. Okay. Next question. Does anime and/or manga exacerbate the issue of herbivore men? Well, this time we'll start with show. Go ahead.
Okay, so for those who don't know, herbivore men is a Japanese term that refers to men that are not interested in romantic or sexual relationships with women. Not because they're gay, they are straights. That they just don't want relationships with women. It's similar to men going their own way in the West, except I assume less toxic. Since herbivore is a very very passive term. So do I think that whether anime manga exacerbates it? I do, because I find a lot of men in anime submissive and passive and not sexually aggressive in any way.
Can you give a quick example? Sorry to cut you off.
Any harem ever? Nichijou. It's called Nichijou.
There's so few men in Nichijou.
No, I'm talking about like the main character.
Okay.
Like the whole premise of Nichijou is like all these girls thirsting over this man, and then the man is like, who's she? What? Key in the locket? How do you put the key in the locket? Please, someone show me. Proverbially and literally. But no. Literally any harem ever.
I would happily put that key in her locket. Anyway.
Oh, okay. My. Sexual innuendo number 2.
Yeah. So, but like, then again, I also want to say that I'm coming from a Canadian perspective, and I feel like I may be too judgy. Like, I don't know, like,
Okay.
this might be okay with the Japanese standards, but to my standards, it's very strange. So yeah.
Okay. Alex, what is your opinion on the matter?
I'm almost tempted to actually agree with Sho on this, but for a completely different reason. I think the big question here is how much does life imitate art and how much does art imitate life? So I mean, like Sho says, in anime and manga, especially in harems, like any harem made after like 1995, you can look at that and like all of the men in the like the center of the harem is so fucking weak and limp wristed. It's like, I don't understand why all these girls like me. And so yeah, I can definitely see how anime and manga and whatever could certainly exacerbate that role, but I think it speaks more to the actual culture injecting that into their art than it does the art injecting it into the culture. I mean, think about it. Since the end of World War II, there has not been a more pacifist group of people on the planet than the Japanese. I mean, they're very they don't take the conflict very well. They stay on their islands and they don't fuck with anybody. I mean, it's seriously that's what their culture has become since World War II, and I think what you've started to see that a lot more, especially in the last 2, maybe 3 decades in anime and manga, through stuff like harems and romances and stuff like that. It's like, and the further along it goes, I think the more you're seeing it, because the more often you're seeing it, because that's all it's become.
Sho, what do you have to say on that?
Just to do a quick correction. I didn't mean Nichijou. I meant Nisekoi.
Okay, I was about to say, like, what are you talking about, Nichijou? I'm sitting here just like,
I understand what you mean now when you're like, there's no men in Nichijou. It's like, oh my god, there isn't. I mean, Nisekoi.
There are men, but like they don't feature in prominently.
Nisekoi. Okay. Also, in relation to your points about the war and pacifism, that doesn't really explain why the women are so usually the aggressors in the relationship, physically and romantically, and sometimes sexually.
Well, think about this. Like, if because according to a bunch of different studies, it's like somewhere between 65 and 70% of their men in their 30s consider themselves to be herbivore men, and that's like self-reporting. I mean, if you have that low of a dating pool to work at, of course, if you're a woman looking at that, you're going to be more aggressive.
Yeah, but that doesn't explain why is it the men are only being herbivores? Why aren't the women being herbivores too? I'm sure there certainly are a small subset of women that are doing it too, but it's like maybe this goes to the difference in men and women's personality. It's like when they're backed up into a wall and they don't have people, they don't have such a small dating pool that they can draw from. What do? You become more aggressive. I feel like you're there's some flaws in your logic. I don't know why it only applies to women and not men, but
I'm sure it can apply to men too. And this could definitely be a cultural thing where it's like it's something that's just inherent to Japanese culture. Who knows? I mean, I'm not Japanese, so I can't really speak to that. I've never lived in Japan. I've never really interacted with people who are from Japan that much, at least not to my knowledge. So I don't really have much to draw in that. I'm just, my whole point is that I think it's more art imitating life than life imitating art.
I think the art is definitely imitating the life, but then after it imitates the life further imitates the art. If that does, I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you're saying it perpetuates an already existing problem. And maybe not even perpetuates, makes it worse. Okay, so I can actually, let me draw on a relatively recent example. It could be more recent if Dean would get their shit together. So Konosuba.
Yeah.
You can sit there and say Konosuba's a harem. I don't think it is. But.
Nah.
But. Look at the main character of Kazuma, right? He starts out as this sort of, he is a NEET. Let's call a spade a spade. He's a fucking NEET.
Was that ever
And
made explicit?
Yeah.
well, pretty much, yeah, at the first episode. So he's pretty much NEET. You can probably assume that he's to some degree a hikikomori. So when he actually goes into this other world, he becomes the complete opposite of what he is, which shows that like there's this potential underneath all of this reclusiveness to be more than you are, to be like more manly, and like it's more incumbent upon the people to overcome this than it is to just like cry in the corner and say, woe is me, this is my lot in life.
Conflating fiction with human psychology is blood.
That's the whole point of this question.
Yeah, keep going, Alex.
I mean, it's kind of my point about Cosmo. Like you could definitely say that he's a sort of herbivore man, especially at the beginning of the story when you meet him. But he kind of overcomes this. So I'm saying that it may be something indicative of the culture, but it doesn't necessarily have to be like all encompassing. It doesn't have to define the person that they are. So there is a way out of it.
Well, to clarify, you don't need to be a NEET, or I mean, you can be a NEET and a hikikomori and not a herbivore man. There's a difference.
That's true. You can. That's true. You can. But I'm not saying they necessarily go hand in hand, but I would say that the chance of you being a herbivore man is higher if you are a NEET and a hikikomori.
I wouldn't really consider. I don't know. We haven't seen too much of Kazuma pre New World, but in the New World, I wouldn't really consider him a herbivore man. Specifically.
No, not. I'm saying not in the New World. He's way more assertive than he seems before than he was before he got there.
They do imply that when he was back in the real world, he was very much stuck to his room and playing his games and watching his anime and stuff. And like even the simple act of going out to the store and buying a game was like a lot of effort in his eyes. So just wanted to interject that.
Yeah, I mean he kind of fills that role pretty well, I would say.
Yeah. Anything else you guys would like to add to this before we move on?
I do have one other thing. I think this has way more to do with things like erogaze than it does with things like anime and manga.
Elaborate, please.
Think about what erogaze offer, right? Erogaze offer you the chance, especially nowadays with like fucking amazing graphics, and you have like these peripherals that can jerk you off. It's like, oh my god.
VR.
Yeah, exactly. So if you had the option of buying into all that and never having to worry about having to please another person, and you have this program that can please you constantly and you don't have to give anything back to it, I think for a lot of people, especially people who find it difficult to socialize, I mean, they're going to choose that if they can, especially if they have the means and the wherewithal to do it, because it's the least amount of effort. So I think that has way more to do with it than anime and manga does.
That's true.
Sure.
Relationships have always been high effort, and some people just don't want to invest in the effort. So, I mean,
and if you can spend $500 for a VR set that'll jerk you off every day, and you don't really want to put in the effort to actually try and get to know somebody, who wouldn't choose that?
I don't know. This seems like a slippery slope. It's just like, it's kind of similar to like blaming porn for real life problems, which I don't know if that's scientifically true.
Well, I mean, people do get addicted to pornography,
but it's not like a widespread issue.
No, that's a thing though.
Yeah, I think it might be a little more widespread than you'd think.
Pornography addiction is a real thing.
Yeah. But I just think that whole act of like the physicality of like, you know, virtual reality and the way it is today kind of makes people way more incentivized to try that out before they try out having an actual significant other. And
really?
I mean, and yeah, I think it does.
What?
That's a real thing. Yeah.
Who considers virtual reality over a relationship? What?
I'm sure there are people
who are
like
disenfranchised with the state of the world, which I would assume is a fair amount of younger Japanese people.
Okay.
It's certainly something that would explain these very high percentages of people who consider, especially men, who self-identify themselves as herbivore men.
I mean, if you say so.
I do love the Japanese government's response to these very high percentages. The Japanese government currently views this phenomenon as one possible cause of the nation's declining birth rate. No shit, Sherlock.
All right. I think we covered this question pretty well. Point to Alex on this one. Anyway, shall we move on?
Yes, please.
Sure.
All right, next question. Nah, I like this one. Okay. Do the gender roles in anime and/or manga exacerbate the low birth rate issue in Japan? Actually, kind of touched on that.
Yeah, I think we already kind of answered that question.
Let's move on. 3 a.m. me is
I'd like to point out it's
focused.
3 a.m. for Nitai, so cut him some slack.
Oh wow, you support me. It's so nice. Anyway, let's go. Okay, I'll skip ahead to this one. Can traps be considered a feminist trope? Alex.
Yes. Okay, so my reasoning for saying yes on this is, again, a lot like my reasoning for the whole gender bending thing. It's like feminists portray themselves as wanting true equality between the sexes, which is a noble goal. And I think that I'm trying not to use sexual innuendo here. I really am.
Right.
I think when it comes to traps, and I don't know if I have to like elaborate on this, but a trap is very specifically a male character who presents themselves as female. They don't necessarily have to identify as a female. They present like either fashion wise or the way they might wear makeup or a dress or whatever. They don't have to be gay either. But they present themselves as very effeminate or portraying very feminine qualities. I think most feminists today specifically would look at that and say like, yes, queen, go girl. Because I think that's essentially what feminists want, is where like you can look at a man who's in a dress and say, okay. I mean, that's it. That's my whole defense of this.
Okay. Show?
I guess I'll have to agree with you.
Wow, this is not much of a debate, is it?
Well, I honestly had no idea what you meant when you said traps are feminist, and so now that I understand, I'm just processing it all.
Oh God, could it be? I agree with him.
But yeah, having a flexible male gender role is definitely, I would definitely consider that feminist. I don't know. I feel like the fandom around traps is a bit toxic.
I've found that the fandom around traps is mostly men.
Yeah.
Wait, you don't see that as an issue?
Wait, why is that an issue?
Well, you can certainly look at traps as trying to appeal to maybe a more like gay fan base, I suppose. But I don't think that most traps are actually gay characters.
No, I don't think traps aren't supposed to be gay characters.
Sure, they could be.
I don't
but
think so.
I don't think most are.
Well, I guess it doesn't matter. Yeah, most traps aren't gay.
But liking traps is. Sexual innuendo number 3.
Well, I guess we don't have that much to say on this matter, I guess, if we do agree.
I mean, traps are traps. I mean, maybe they're not feminist, but they certainly kind of, I don't know, appeal to what feminists espouse, where it's like this equality. And I'm not saying that if you're a trap, or if you're a trap character, that you can't have a traditional male gender role. You can. I mean, hell, look at something like Felix Argyle in Re:Zero. Like, he's a fucking knight. He's a soldier, and he's a trap. Like, I don't think there's much more of a manly, quote-unquote, traditional manly role than being a soldier.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's not, like, just to interject, it's not like for show. He's actually, like, legit, like, a strong character in terms of, like, how he wields his weapons and such. So it's not like just for a joke him being, and that's like his actual profession.
Yeah, it's just he's this. I would say he's probably more manly than most traps you see in anime because like it's just an aesthetic for him.
Yeah,
like
it's
how
more...
he presents himself, like in a sort of a fashion sense. But it's not like it doesn't define who he is.
Yeah, okay.
That's all I got to say about that.
Anything else you want to add, Joe?
You want to disagree with me so bad, don't you?
I do. I'm trying to find something to disagree with you on.
Yes, I win.
No, you're not allowed to. Okay, traps are bad. That's all I have to say. I don't know. I have nothing else to say.
Have you
All
wait?
right,
So what? No, I have to ask. What is your actual like generalized opinion about traps, like as a character type?
Like, why are they here? What is the purpose of the trap? Like, I'm so confused.
Could it be the same thing as the male to female gender bending? Like, it's like for marketing or aesthetics, just to draw people in.
And also, I'd like to note that like the term trap is a fan-made term, is not used by the industry. So, I don't know what the industry is doing, or what they intend to do.
Knows.
Oh, is it just like a fan service kind of thing? It is.
It could be. I mean, it could be purely fan service, in which case it's a very clever way to throw in fan service because it's not just flashing tits and ass at you.
Well, then it's just a kink, right? It's just kink service.
Maybe. That doesn't
Traps
mean it
are
can't be a
just kink
feminist thing.
service. I guess. Also, the term trap is problematic.
Why?
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
does what it says on the
topic
tin.
for like another day, honestly.
Sure.
So let's not veer into that.
Just a quick shameless plug. We actually had an entire podcast where we talked about traps. You should check it out.
That's very true. Nice plug. Okay, let's move on. You know what? I mean, we already talked about manliness in some way, so let's move to this specific question because I find it very interesting. Is it wrong to conflate portrayals of manliness in anime or manga with the concept of toxic masculinity? Show.
Okay. I don't know what this means. Alex, put it down.
Okay, then Alex.
Okay, so in feminist circles in the West, they always talk about toxic masculinity. They point out these very masculine like traits that have existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years, that they point to men doing today, and they say that's toxic. Why? Because it's masculine. So I look at anime and manga, specifically, very specifically, shonen anime and manga, where, let's be honest, a vast majority of the main cast of these shows is male. It tries to present itself as appealing to a male demographic, primarily male demographic, even though I know it has a lot of women watch shonen. I know. And I point very, very specifically to the character of Kamina in Gurren Lagann. I don't think you'd be hard-pressed to find anyone who has watched Gurren Lagann to look at Kamina and say, that is not a manly man. I mean, he exudes masculinity. I mean, that is his character archetype. So I look at that and I think, if I were like a third-wave feminist today, I'd look at that and say, God, he's so toxic. So I mean, that's kind of what I meant when I wrote this down as a potential question to ask. It's like, I don't think it's right to necessarily look at that and say like all of these hyper like masculine characters in anime and manga are gonna be like toxically masculine. I don't personally believe that this concept of toxic masculinity exists at all, much less exists in anime and manga. But I can certainly see how people who actually do believe it exists would conflate these portrayals of male characters in anime like that.
But do you think it's wrong, right?
Oh yeah, I think it's wrong to conflate that, mostly because I don't think toxic masculinity exists. Hell, fucking JoJo's Bizarre Adventure exists because of masculinity.
Okay. Show.
Okay, so
Do
now
you
that
now have something to
yes,
say?
now that I understand what you were saying, so I interpret toxic masculinity as when you are so adhering to the gender role of a man that you make unreasonable decisions. You forego those decisions because you want to act like a masculine man. That's what I call toxic masculinity. And
name an example.
so I don't know about a specific example in anime and manga, but like say that, you know, you want to be, you as a man, you want to fight and you get aggressive and you get into fights when you don't need to, and you make the situation worse than it has to be because you were being violent when you really didn't need to be, and you were just stroking your own male ego when you could have just resolved it with talking and not made the situation worse. That's an example.
Okay, not very specific, but okay.
What? Did you have a problem with the concept or with the relation to anime manga?
I mean, it's a very generalized example, but I get what you're saying.
Okay. It's just clarifying the concept. Okay.
Keep going.
So I can see how someone can make the argument that Kamina is toxically masculine, because I feel he does go a little over the top, and like sometimes he could make better decisions instead of being so like, instead of feeding his persona, he could make more rational decisions. I don't have a specific example, but I feel like there's definitely places where he could do that. And by that same coin, I do think toxic femininity exists for the
Wow,
exact
you are
same
one of
reason.
the few people in the world who will admit that.
For the exact same reason, for women who are so hyper feminine that they don't make reasonable decisions, I think that still applies to women. And
Wow, I'm actually shocked to hear someone say that toxic femininity exists.
yes, it's not a very common thing, but I think it's true. So
Okay.
yeah.
Would you say necessarily then that like portrayals of the character archetype of the gyaru would be toxically feminine?
Give
Like-
an example for that character
Oh my
archetype.
god.
Yeah, okay, so gyarus are a type, specifically a type of female character in anime and manga. These kind of people also exist like IRL in Japan. They're females that have like sort, I won't say co-opted, but they've taken a great deal of inspiration from Western fashion, and they've applied it to themselves to the point where it's not just how they look, it's how they act. So you have like gyaru characters who will go look at like a Cosmopolitan magazine, and they'll take like they'll wear the really short skirts, they'll wear the blouse that, you know, shows off a lot of cleavage, they'll wear like a push-up bra, and they'll heavy makeup, heavy face makeup. And then they'll take this sort of attitude as like holier than thou, like they'll look down at everyone like kind of like Asuka. And the personality of Asuka in Evangelion,
Just
like
that,
she looks
oozing
down on
that
everyone and thinks that she's
superiority,
better than
so-
everyone else around her.
Just feeling very superior to your peers.
Yeah,
Sort of.
but so
Okay.
would you say that kind of like a stereotypical gyaru character would necessarily be an example of toxic femininity?
See, okay, well, I don't think gyaru I don't think gyaru are as you described. That was hard for me to say, because I think, yeah, like, I don't think they have to look down on you. They just have to be very into makeup boys and like acting very feminine and fashion.
Okay, well, so even if you don't necessarily agree with how I described it, would you say that gyaru is, as you described them, an example of toxic femininity?
See, a gyaru, oh my god,
I know it's a very hard word to say.
a gyaru can be toxically feminine, or they don't have to be. Like, you can be hyper feminine, you can be hyper toxic. You can be both hyper feminine and hyper masculine without being toxic.
You can be hyper toxic too, just generally.
Oh my gosh, sure.
Again, just to interject, keep in mind that's also sort of a kink. I mean, should I remind how many times people joke around, Alex and I specifically, that, yeah, Arena, just step all over me. So
That's not a joke in my case.
Oh my. So like
Notice I didn't
speaking
throw
of
the
food
tie
wars,
under the
I would
bus.
describe Nikumi as a gyaru, not Erina.
Oh yeah, she's definitely. I mean, she has it all the way down to she wears stars and stripes.
Yeah. And I don't think
I would say, yeah, she's a
and I
better
don't think she's
example of it
toxic
than.
either because she gets shit done.
Well, so does Kamina.
Eh. It didn't work out for
In
Kamina.
spirit, he gets shit done.
Hey, whoa, you're coming very close
Didn't
there,
work
sir.
out. Didn't work out.
All right, you need to stop immediately. I don't know.
Anyway.
I think it's way too easy for people to look at like portrayals of hyper masculinity in anime and just say that's bad. I certainly don't think most Japanese people look at it that way. Of course, I don't think most Japanese people buy into the whole social justice bullshit either. But I mean, like I said at the beginning of this, like JoJo's Bizarre Adventure has survived for more than 30 years now, based solely on its masculine properties, like on the masculine properties of its characters and on the masculine quality of its storytelling, where it's like, I am man, hear me roar.
Yeah, but like
Then again, it's like the more years have passed, the more feminine the designs have become.
The designs, but not the way they act.
you know,
They still act pretty masculine in comparison.
JoJo's is a Joe joke, just like masculinity is a Joe joke.
Wow.
You're
No,
officially
just-
off this debate.
Wow. Like, thank you. Just because you're an effeminate gay man. I don't know. It seems like it's way too easy for people to do that, and I don't think it should be conflated. I really don't. I think that it is okay. It is 100% okay to be manly. It is okay to eat meat and fucking strut your muscles. It is okay to do that. I mean, it's how men compete with each other, as opposed to women who go behind each other's backs and betray each other. That's how they
Wow.
compete.
Very, very sexist
Hashtag
there.
feminism.
It's true.
Um,
No, see, my point is, women compete with each other by showing. Men compete with each other by doing.
did you just say showing?
Yeah, showing. Like wearing a bunch of jewelry, wearing makeup, wearing really nice clothes.
And how do men compete with each other?
By doing. By beating each other up.
Girl, what world do you live in?
The real world.
Where are these fist fights happening, honey? Hook me up.
I'm going to open up a weeb fight club.
Okay.
First rule of Fight Club.
And girl, have you ever heard of a cat fight? That's how real women do it.
All right. You guys had enough of this question, or anything else you would like to add?
What was the question? Toxic masculinity?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Oh, I want to say that you bring up Kamina and JoJo's, but hyper masculinity is not that common in anime and manga, honestly. It's like
It's certainly not now. You're right. It was way more popular like back in the 70s, 80s, and maybe early 90s.
and like
Yeah.
yeah, and even in shonen shows, like especially like you said, the modern ones, like the protagonist.
Are typically weak bitches.
Yeah.
They're soy boys. They're basically soy boys.
I mean, they can be like muscle jacked up, but they are not hyper masculine. Like a lot of
and I
them
think
aren't.
that's-
Small correction: they might not be hyper masculine, but they are masculine.
They are.
No, not necessarily.
It's not
Deku certainly
Fist of the
isn't.
North Star.
But I'm talking about modern shonen characters like Deku and MHA are not in any way what you would consider like really beefy or muscular.
Yeah, no, he is.
And hell, he's
muscular.
breaking his legs all the time.
He is muscular.
You
just
see his
not-
muscles. It's funny
Yeah.
because like all the men have huge muscles when they take their shirts off, but when their shirts are on, they're like sticks.
Yeah, but you didn't see that in old manga and anime. I mean, like I think Natai mentioned it. Fist of the North Star. You watch that show. Fucking Kenshiro is jacked no matter what he's wearing or if he's wearing anything at all. I don't know. To me, that's certainly that those kind of manga and anime, like Fist of the North Star, like JoJo's, like Gurren Lagann. Those sorts of shows exude way more masculinity than your common modern day shonen like MHA or or Black Clover is another good example of fucking anime, shonen anime with just a fucking soy boy for a protagonist.
He's also pretty muscular, just not
He's still a soy
hyper
boy.
muscular.
I don't know if I consider him a soy boy.
Nah, he's pretty muscular.
He's kind of like a dumb bitch. What do you call
Wait, did you say kind of like a dumb bitch?
No,
no,
like,
he is a dumb bitch.
those people who like run like kamikaze? He's like a kamikaze. That's what he is.
Okay, again, we're steering away from the question itself. Concerning that question, do we have anything else we would like to add?
I got nothing.
That's all.
Okay. Point goes to Alex.
Wow.
Next question.
I'm winning.
By the way, these points mean nothing. They are mainly for my own entertainment. Next question.
I think it needs to be the last question because we're
Yeah, this
running
is
up the time clock here.
Yeah. You guys, okay. You guys feel like we want to talk about this question, or concerning the time we want to wrap this up?
We have one
Yeah,
more.
we can talk about this. Ask the
Okay.
question.
So, final question for the debate. Do portrayals of women in anime and or manga exacerbate the domestic role of women in Japan? Show.
Great. I totally have a point to make. I would say, they do, because a lot of anime and manga is focused on high school setting, not on a career setting. So then you don't get to see a lot of career women. So that means that you are hiding the career women from the young Japanese women that are watching it, and then they never know what a career woman is. That's why.
Excuse me. Okay, sure. Alex, go.
Okay, so this is an interesting question because, yeah, I can sort of see why people would think this. But I would say, given the nature of how anime and manga is, yeah, there's a lot of it that takes place in high school. And, I mean, what sort of domestic role does a high school girl have besides doing chores at home? But ignoring that, when you look at anime that involves adult characters, I don't really think so, especially when you consider that there are there's so many really great like lead women in anime that just they don't have any domestic role whatsoever. Two that come to mind immediately are Revi from Black Lagoon and the Major from Ghost in the Shell. Not domestic in any sense of the word, and yet they're really great portrayals of women in anime. In fact, we had a podcast on that last week. You should go check out.
I would love for these two to domesticate me.
Oh my.
Oh. Number
Sexual.
4.
Go. You went to number 4.
Where was I going with this? I don't know.
You said that they weren't like domestic at all in terms of like their job.
I don't think it's certainly not. It's certainly not that common. At least not to me. There certainly are portrayals of women in anime and manga where the women have almost entirely a domestic role, where they're basically a housewife, for lack of a better term.
March comes in like a lion.
That is actually a really good example of one that I was just about to point out. Where, like, yeah, the main female character, well, I won't say main female character, but one of the main female characters in March Comes Like Lion is a housewife, a damn good one, and I would say actually she's a great example of a great female performance or portrayal of a female character in anime. For that very reason, that she's the nurturer, she's the carer, she kind of has to be out of like necessity for the situation that she's in with her sisters, but
she's like the mother figure, you could say.
Yeah, and I wouldn't say this is necessarily exclusive to female characters either. Look at the role of single fathers in anime, which was portrayed very, very well in the anime adaptation of Sweetness and Lightning, which was back in 2016, I think it was. Yeah, 2016. That actually portrayed like the domestic role of a man really well, in spite of the fact that most of these roles are done by women in Japan. So I don't think it's necessarily exacerbating like an issue that doesn't already exist. I mean, 'cause obviously, there's a lot of domestic women who have very domestic roles in their relationships they're in Japan, but I don't think it necessarily makes that like more prominent.
I would say that a lot, like you pointed out some good examples, but I say that a lot of, for a majority of anime and manga, if we're talking about like action and fantasy, a lot of the women are sidelined and a lot of the men are the ones that are focused on. And if we look at like female oriented anime and manga, it's not very adventurous, or like it's mostly like romantic, which kind of leans towards the domestication. And it doesn't, and then when you look at anime and manga not geared towards women, the women are sidelined in lieu of the men. Which, I mean, you could say that's a problem for men as well, because there's not a lot of men in domestic situations for the majority of anime and manga. So I think that's a problem both ways, that you don't see a lot of domestic men and you don't see a lot of the opposite of domestic, working, assertive women. I don't see a lot of like stuff that focuses on women.
I would definitely say that there's a significant lack of anime that focuses on people, either male or female, who happen to be like single in their early to mid 30s. I would say that that's mostly a cultural thing, because that's very much frowned upon in Japanese society. But it's like in Japanese society, you're supposed to like be settled down by the time you're 30.
Yeah, but even if we just like disregard the actual age of the characters, and we just take like stuff like shonen as a metaphor for a job, like you're going out on a journey, that can be a metaphor for like starting a career. Like, but the thing is that like a lot of shonen, like with the name shonen, you know, they focus on men, not women, whereas like a lot of shoujo are not about a journey. It's about like obsessing over a man, like creating that domestic relationship. So I can see
Is that necessarily a bad thing?
I don't know if it's a bad thing, but I can say that it is. I would say that it's exacerbating an issue in Japan.
So the women in domestic roles is actually an issue for you.
In Japan, it is, because the culture is very toxic to men and women, where men are expected to work crazy hours and women are very highly discouraged from jobs. And employees don't look for women, they look for men. And that's just the culture in Japan right now. And I think it's very bad there. And I think that...
I would say they're also... Women in general are also more highly encouraged to be subservient towards men than in the West.
In what way?
I would certainly say in North America.
What do you mean?
Like, they're supposed... Like, if they do get into a relationship, they're supposed to accept being, like, number two in the relationship.
In what way?
Like, the women aren't supposed to be the ones controlling the relationship. The men are supposed to, like, decide where to go and what to do, and, for lack of a better term, be more dominant.
If you say so. I haven't heard of that, but sure.
I'm saying it seems to be more of a trend in the East, which is, I would say, more of an old-fashioned traditional gender role, which I'm not entirely against.
I'm against it when it's enforced on such a widespread level. Like, if you're a woman and you want to be in that relationship, that's fine. That's your choice. But like, not all women want that, and all women in Japan are being grown up in this culture, and some of them are not okay with it. But that's how they're living.
But you wouldn't say that there's something wrong with a woman choosing to do that.
No, you can choose to do whatever you want.
Okay.
I want to interject, because I just remembered like a specific example of reverse, sort of a reverse of that relationship of like the roles between men and women and women in our marriage. So in Madoka Magica, I don't know if you guys remember, but the father is the guy who cooks and makes breakfast and like take care of the house, and Madoka's mother is the one who's like the businesswoman is always going on like trips and stuff because she has work and so
He's
that
essentially a house husband.
yeah, so that type of relationship is explored sometimes in anime. If I can remember more examples, but there are examples of that type of relationship in anime.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, yeah,
Just
they are. I
not
just say
as,
they're
like-
exceptionally rare.
Yeah, but they do exist.
Yeah, they do exist. The question though is it a good or a bad thing? I happen to think that it's a good thing if it's the choice of the person doing it. Like if a woman chooses to be a housewife, I mean, more power to her. Again, and if a man chooses to be a house husband, then sure, why not? I'm certainly not against people forced into these roles if they don't want to be. Obviously, any kind of relationship is a sort of an exchange between individuals about whose duty it is to do what. But that has to come down to an individual level. You can't just put a blanket term of it saying anytime this is portrayed, it's bad.
Do you
And I
feel like
think-
no, go ahead.
I think that like the whole idea of shonen and shoujo is like toxic in and of itself, where like shonen is equated to like action adventure, and why don't you just call it action adventure? And shoujo is equated to romance. Why don't you just call it romance? Like, why can't men like romance? Why can't women like action adventure? If you just like equalized the gender portrayals in each of the respective genres, then it would be like better, but it's not. That's not how it is. And I feel like since it's so segregated, that is what is exacerbating the issue.
See, I actually disagree with that because I would say that the segregation is kind of natural depending on the story. Like, I'm going to generalize here. Again, not all men and not all women, but most men are more like action oriented. Like they like to go do things and like work with their hands, so to speak, which I mean a lot of shonen protagonists end up doing. They go places and they do stuff with their hands. They go places to find a bad guy and they beat the bad guy up with their hands. Women, on the other hand, love to talk out problems. They love to talk out problems more than use their fists to solve problems, that's for sure. So that's what you see in shoujo. Like, you see there's a lot of talking. There's a lot of talking in shoujo, a lot of dialogue. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's like it shows to illustrate this dichotomy between men and women, like this traditional gender role, which I think it's not really good or bad. It just is. It's like a biological fact. It just is.
Okay, I don't think
What
it's a
about shows like Sailor Moon, which portray like high school girls sort of like fighting evil forces and stuff.
Yeah, but at the same time, the main character of Sailor Moon swoons over a guy.
Yeah, see, it doesn't have to be like one thing or the other.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't have to be. It can be both at the same time. And like I said, it's not all women, it's not all men, but in general, that's the way it is.
I think you're incorrect because around 50% of the readership of Shonen Jump is female, even though it's Shonen Jump. And I don't think you're just basing it off your own opinions. Like, there's no facts to back it up.
Well, I'd say the traditional gender roles throughout 2 or 3 centuries would be fact enough, but okay.
That doesn't saying like
it just no, go ahead.
just like, okay, like you're saying that men like watching action and women like watching psychological, like interpersonal stuff.
Yeah, interpersonal stuff, yes, because women are, by definition, they tend to be more like agreeable than men.
Oh, well.
I think we're kind of repeating ourselves at this point with this topic.
Yeah.
But I think we should end it here. This question. By the way, yeah, I'm with Show on this one actually.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's about time to wrap this up. That was a really fun little debate we had.
Yeah.
Did you guys have fun?
Who won?
I did.
It's a tie actually.
Motherfucker.
He asked an even number of questions, so there was going to be a probability of a tie. I would like to say something before we go, though.
For sure.
This isn't about... So, I mentioned at the beginning when we started doing this that this came out of a very long discussion that we had during our Darling in the Franxx podcast that had to get scrapped. So I found out during this that the show and I disagree on a lot of like fundamental stuff when it comes to like gender roles and feminism. So that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this, because I thought it would be interesting. I also wanted to try something new with this kind of a format. So I mean, if you guys like it, certainly let us know. We can probably come up with other topics to do debates on with other people.
Yeah.
But another part of the reason I wanted to do this was to show that just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. Like, Sho and I are really good friends, but we disagree on a lot of stuff.
Not anymore.
But I mean, seriously, like, in this time, like, you look around and you see so much division. It is okay to be friends with someone you disagree with, either about something politically or something, like, religiously, whatever. It is okay to be friends with those people. It's okay to have debates with those people. I encourage people to like seek out and have conversations with people who disagree with you, because it can actually be
really fun.
It can be an enriching experience for both of you. So before you just shut someone out and say your opinion is stupid, I don't give a shit about what you say, ask questions about it. You can start a conversation.
Burn those bridges, honey. Light them up.
Yeah, and on that note, your opinion is stupid, Axel. Shut the fuck up. Anyway, I think that's about time we wrap this up. This was a lot of fun. Thank you to both of you for participating. This was a lot of fun, even for 3 a.m. me.
Yeah, thank you for waking up at 2 a.m. to do this.
It's a pleasure. I always enjoy these. Okay, so again, thank you all for dropping by and listening to this wonderful debate we had. Again, I think this is a really good starting point. If we had more debates in the future, that will be a lot of fun. So hopefully you guys will enjoy this one and future debates. In the meantime, if you want to check out previous episodes of the podcast, you can find us on SoundCloud, iTunes, and YouTube. And if you want to keep up with what we're doing and have a little more fun, you can join our Facebook group, follow our Twitch channel, and visit our website. All the links will be down below. And feel free to shoot us an email or something, whatever, with it, whether it's a complaint or something you liked about the podcast, whatever it is, we absolutely want to hear about it. And again, thank you guys for joining me tonight. It was a lot of fun. Now, I've been Itai, and I'll see you next time. Say good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Fuck, it's 5 a.m.